Someone close to you, a partner, a coworker, a friend, says something that makes you feel guilty for something you didn't do, or they get you to agree to something you never actually wanted, and somehow after the conversation you can't even explain how it happened, you just feel off. That's manipulation, and the scary thing is, it almost never looks like manipulation when it's happening. Today we're breaking down 7 of the most common manipulation tactics that psychologists, therapists, and researchers have identified. Not so you can use them, but so that the next time someone tries, you'll recognize it immediately and know exactly what to do. Let's get into it. Tactic number 1, gaslighting. The term gaslighting comes from a 1944 film called Gaslight, where a husband slowly manipulates his wife into believing she's losing her mind. And while the word has become popular, the actual tactic is far more insidious than most people realize. Gaslighting is when someone makes you question your own perception of reality. It can be subtle. That never happened. You're too sensitive. You're imagining things. Or more overt, like flat-out denying events you clearly remember. Here's what makes it so effective. It doesn't attack you directly. It attacks your memory, your emotions, and your judgment. Over time, the target starts relying on the manipulator to tell them what's real. That's the goal, to make you dependent on their version of reality. Common phrases that signal gaslighting: you're overreacting. That's not what happened. You always twist things. You're crazy/too emotional to think straight. I never said that. You're making things up. What makes it especially dangerous is that it tends to escalate slowly. It rarely starts with a dramatic denial. It starts with small corrections. "Oh, I think you're misremembering." Repeated over months or years, those small corrections erode your self-trust. How to protect yourself? First, document things. Keep a journal, save texts, write down conversations after they happen. When someone tells you that you're misremembering, you'll have a record to return to. Second, trust your gut. If something happened and you felt it, your feelings are data. A pattern of being told you're wrong about everything is not a coincidence, it's a control strategy. Third, bring in outside perspectives. Gaslighting thrives in isolation. Talking to a trusted friend, family member, or therapist about what you're experiencing can be grounding and clarifying. The goal of gaslighting is to make you doubt yourself so much that you stop trusting yourself at all. Don't let anyone rent space in your reality. Tactic number 2, love bombing. At first, it feels like the best thing that's ever happened to you. Love bombing is when someone overwhelms you with excessive affection, attention, flattery, and connection, usually very early in a relationship. They text constantly. They call you their soulmate after 2 weeks. They want to spend every moment together. They tell you they've never felt this way about anyone. It feels intense. It feels electric. And that's exactly the point. Love bombing is manipulation disguised as romance. The manipulator isn't actually in love. They're building dependency. By flooding you with positive attention, they create an emotional high that makes you feel bonded and obligated. Once that bond is established, they can begin the real dynamic, which usually involves control, criticism, or withdrawal of the very affection they gave so freely. Think of it as a bait and switch for your nervous system. They show you the most exhilarating version of connection, then slowly replace it with something entirely different, and by then you're already attached. Signs you might be experiencing love bombing. They move the relationship forward unusually fast. They claim a deep, unique connection with you very early on. They want all of your time and create guilt when you're unavailable. Compliments feel excessive, almost performative. When you try to slow things down, they become hurt or push back dramatically. How to protect yourself? Pace yourself, regardless of how the other person is pacing. Healthy relationships build trust over time. They don't demand it immediately. Notice how you feel when you try to create space. If someone reacts with anger, guilt-tripping, or withdrawal when you ask for a slower pace, That's a major red flag. Ask yourself, do I actually know this person, or do I just feel attached to how they make me feel? Those are very different things. Real love is consistent. Love bombing peaks early and rarely lasts.
Tactic number 3, the silent treatment. The silent treatment might seem like the absence of manipulation. After all, the person isn't doing anything. But that's exactly what makes it so powerful. The silent treatment is weaponized withdrawal. It's the deliberate removal of communication, warmth, or presence as a form of punishment and control. When someone uses the silent treatment manipulatively, they're not taking space to calm down or process their emotions. They're sending a message: comply with what I want or I'll withhold myself from you. The effect on the target is predictable: anxiety, desperate attempts to repair, and often capitulating to whatever the manipulator wanted in the first place, just to make the silence stop. That's the reward the manipulator gets, and it reinforces the behavior every single time it works. Psychologists refer to this as emotional withholding, and in the context of close relationships, it can be a form of emotional abuse. Research from Kipling Williams at Purdue University found that being socially ignored activates the same neural pathways as physical pain. The silent treatment literally hurts. Signs it's manipulative rather than healthy space. It's used every time conflict arises, rather than occasionally to de-escalate. It ends only when you apologize or give in, regardless of who was actually wrong. The person refuses to acknowledge they're doing it. It leaves you feeling punished, rather than simply giving both of you space. How to protect yourself? Don't chase. This is hard, but it's crucial. The silent treatment works because the target panics and pursues. When you stop chasing, you stop rewarding the behavior. Name it calmly. I notice you've stopped responding. When you're ready to talk, I'm here. Then leave the door open without crawling under it. In an ongoing relationship, address the pattern when communication is good. When you go silent after conflict, I feel punished and unable to resolve anything. I'd like us to find another way to handle disagreements. And ultimately, if the silent treatment is a regular tool someone uses on you, ask yourself what that says about how they view your relationship. Tactic number 4, guilt tripping. Guilt is a normal and healthy emotion. It tells us when we violated our own values. But guilt tripping is when someone manufactures or amplifies guilt in you to get what they want, regardless of whether you've actually done anything wrong. This is one of the most culturally normalized manipulation tactics because it often hides inside of love. Parents, partners, friends, people we care about use it constantly, sometimes without even realizing it. After everything I've done for you, I guess I just don't matter to you. Fine, don't worry about me. I'll be okay. If you really loved me, you wouldn't do that. Sound familiar? These statements are designed to make you feel responsible for someone else's feelings, and therefore obligated to act in a way that alleviates their discomfort, often at a cost to yourself. The key difference between guilt tripping and legitimate emotional expression is accountability versus performance. Legitimate emotional expression says, I felt hurt when that happened. Guilt tripping says, you hurt me, and that means you owe me something. What makes it effective? It exploits your empathy, one of your best qualities. It often contains a kernel of truth, which makes it harder to dismiss. It makes you feel like you're the problem for not complying. How to protect yourself? Pause before you respond. Ask yourself, did I actually do something wrong here, or am I being made to feel like I did? There's a huge difference between taking responsibility for your actions and accepting responsibility for someone else's emotions. Practice separating guilt from obligation. You can acknowledge someone's feelings without agreeing that you caused them or that you're required to fix them, and be direct. I hear that you're upset. Can we talk about this specifically rather than generally? Guilt trippers often rely on vague language. Specificity disrupts the tactic.
Tactic number 5, negging, and intermittent reinforcement. These two tactics are deeply connected, and together they form one of the most psychologically potent manipulation combinations in existence. Negging is the practice of delivering backhanded compliments or subtle put-downs designed to undermine your confidence while keeping you emotionally engaged. It originated in pickup artist culture but shows up across all types of relationships. Examples: "You're actually pretty smart. I wasn't expecting that." "That's a bold outfit choice for someone with your body type." "You're funny. Not conventionally attractive, but funny." The goal is to lower your self-esteem just enough that you feel the need to prove yourself to the person who just undermined you. It creates a psychological itch, and the manipulator positions themselves as the only one who can scratch it. Now layer in intermittent reinforcement, the practice of giving rewards, warmth, praise, affection, approval on an unpredictable, inconsistent schedule. Sometimes they're wonderful, sometimes they're cold and dismissive. You never know which version you'll get. Psychologists know this is the most powerful reinforcement schedule for creating compulsive behavior. It's the same principle behind slot machines. The unpredictability makes the reward moments feel more valuable and keeps you locked in, constantly trying to get back to the good version of the person. Together, negging and intermittent reinforcement manufacture a craving for someone's approval that wouldn't otherwise exist. How to protect yourself. Notice how you feel after interactions. Do you consistently feel slightly diminished, slightly unsure of yourself? That's data. Be especially wary of relationships where you feel like you're constantly trying to earn affection or approval rather than simply enjoying it. Healthy relationships don't require you to prove your worth, and recognize that someone who criticizes you in ways that sting and then turns around and makes you feel special hasn't balanced it out. They've created a dynamic that serves them, not you. Tactic number 6, appeal to fear and catastrophizing. Fear is one of the most primal and powerful motivators in human psychology. Manipulators who understand this use it deliberately. They introduce, amplify, or manufacture fear to push you toward a decision or behavior you wouldn't otherwise choose. This tactic shows up in personal relationships, in advertising, in politics, and in the workplace, and it comes in several forms. Catastrophizing is when someone exaggerates the potential negative consequences of a situation, often to pressure you into agreement or action. "If you leave me, you'll never find anyone who loves you like I do. If you don't close this deal today, someone else will and the company will suffer. If you tell anyone about this, everything will fall apart." Manufacturing fear is when a manipulator creates a threat, real or imagined, that makes you feel unsafe or unstable so that they can present themselves as your source of safety. This is common in abusive relationships where the abuser creates chaos and then positions themselves as the only stable thing in your life. Appeal to fear and persuasion is using worst-case scenarios to push you past critical thinking. You have to decide now. This opportunity disappears tonight. The common thread is urgency and extremity. Fear-based manipulation almost always makes things feel more catastrophic and more immediate than they actually are. How to protect yourself. Slow down. Fear-based manipulation relies on short-circuiting your critical thinking with urgency. When you feel pressured to decide right now, that's almost always a manipulation signal. Real opportunities and real relationships can withstand a pause. Ask, what's the realistic outcome here? Walk through the actual probabilities. Catastrophic predictions rarely come true, and when someone is using fear to control you, the realistic picture is usually far less dire than they're presenting. And notice if one person in your life is consistently the source of fear and the solution to it. That's not a coincidence. That's a control dynamic. Tactic number 7, triangulation. Triangulation is when a manipulator deliberately brings a third party into a two-person dynamic to create jealousy, insecurity, competition, or to shift power. It's one of the more sophisticated manipulation tactics because it works through indirection. Rather than coming at you directly, the manipulator uses another person, real or implied, to influence your behavior. Here's how it shows up. In romantic relationships, constantly mentioning how an ex or another admirer thinks they're wonderful, or how someone else would never do this. The goal is to make you feel replaceable and therefore more eager to please. In family dynamics, a parent who plays siblings against each other, sharing confidential information or comparing behavior to create rivalry and dependency on the parent as mediator. In workplaces, a manager who tells different team members different things, creating confusion and conflict that keeps the team divided and the manager central. What all these versions share is the same core mechanic. The manipulator positions themselves at the center of a triangle, controlling the flow of information and emotion while others compete for their approval or attention. Signs you might be experiencing triangulation. You frequently hear about how other people view you, filtered through the manipulator. You feel in competition with others for someone's attention or approval. Information about you seems to be shared without your consent. Conflict between you and others always seems to rope back through one person. How to protect yourself? Go direct. If you have a relationship with the third party being used, communicate with them directly rather than through the manipulator. Triangulation loses power when the two sides of the triangle can actually talk to each other, refuse to compete. When someone implies you could be replaced or compared, resist the instinct to prove yourself. That reaction is exactly what the tactic is fishing for.
And name the pattern when safe to do so. I notice I keep hearing about other people's opinions of me through you. I'd rather we focus on our relationship directly. So there they are, 7 manipulation tactics that operate every day in relationships, workplaces, and communities around us. Gaslighting, attacking your perception of reality. Love bombing, overwhelming you with affection to create dependency. The silent treatment, weaponizing withdrawal as punishment. Guilt tripping, manufacturing a sense of obligation through false responsibility. Negging and intermittent reinforcement, undermining your confidence while creating a compulsive need for approval. Appeal to fear and catastrophizing, using urgency and worst-case thinking to bypass your judgment. Triangulation, using third parties to control, divide, and destabilize. Now here's the important thing. Recognizing these tactics doesn't make you paranoid. Most people who use manipulation aren't cartoon villains. Many of them learned these behaviors as survival strategies and don't even realize they're doing it. But understanding what's happening is the first step to changing the dynamic, protecting yourself, or making an informed decision about whether a relationship is healthy. If you recognize several of these patterns in a relationship in your life and they're happening consistently, please consider talking to a therapist or counselor. These dynamics can be hard to see clearly from the inside, and professional support makes a real difference. Knowledge is the armor here. The more clearly you see, the less power these tactics have. If this video helped you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. And drop in the comments, which of these tactics have you encountered? Let's talk about it. See you in the next one.